Cyclone Jasper is intensifying earlier than expected. Queensland now on notice for a potentially stronger cyclone landfall. So here's a look at Jasper right now. You can see it's a Category 1 strength tropical cyclone, but it now has stronger winds than it did this morning, which is significantly earlier than when we expected the storm to start its strengthening. We were thinking tomorrow morning maybe, but it is now this evening, and we're already seeing some better development in this tropical cyclone. Your latest update brought to you by Force 13 Australia. Please do consider subscribing and leave a like on the video while you're at it. But nonetheless, Cyclone Jasper is expected to now be a little bit stronger as it makes landfall north of Cairns into Wednesday. So it's a Category 1 strength tropical cyclone right now, winds of 90 kilometres an hour, gusting to 135 kilometres an hour. You can see from the Bureau of Meteorology's forecast track the damaging wind field extending almost to the Queensland coastline at this time, down towards Bowen. So the outer islands are from the Queensland coastline in the Coral Sea are probably going to be receiving those damaging winds today and into tomorrow morning. And as the storm moves further up the coast, we'll likely be seeing these damaging winds extend over the coastline through Innisfail and then up towards Cairns tomorrow evening. So here's a look at the multi-model diagnostics and the Bureau of Meteorology forecast cones. You can see a cyclone warning now in effect for parts of Queensland, extending from Townsville up towards Cape Melville. This is a significant storm, that's for sure, and some strengthening is expected as wind shear fall is falling and sea surface temperatures are rising as this storm lines up for final approach onto the Queensland coastline. So we're likely going to be seeing this storm regain Category 2 status tomorrow morning, and it will likely get up towards high-end Category 2 status before landfall, which will likely be just south of Port Douglas, putting Cairns probably in the eye of this system. So here's a look at our forecast cone. It's in perfect conjunction with the Bureau of Meteorology's forecast cone. We're expecting the cyclone to regain Category 1 status tomorrow at around 4 a.m. local time. Category 2 status as it moves up towards Cairns, and it will make landfall as a Category 2 strength tropical cyclone, high end, in around 36 to 40 hours time from now. Then we'll see it move over the Cape York Peninsula and into the Gulf of Carpentaria as a tropical low, where possible re-strengthening around Groot Island or north of Mornington Island is expected by around day 4 or day 5, but that's more long range. We're focusing on the short range right now. Here's a look at the Access G3 10-metre wind runs for the next 5 days. You can see the cyclone intensifying substantially just before landfall with the development of those black wind colours, which is up towards 60 knots. That's sustained winds approaching 130 kilometres an hour. High-end Category 2 status, that is, approaching Category 3 severe tropical cyclone status before it moves over the Cape York Peninsula and into the Gulf of Carpentaria, where it's kind of just hobbles around as a tropical low. We'll play through that run again so you can see exactly where this storm is expected to make landfall and its passage through the Cape York Peninsula. Just north of Cairns, probably around Port Douglas, around there. That will bring the strongest winds onshore just north of Cairns, around Port Douglas. So the destructive core of this system will pass over Cairns, and very destructive wind gusts are possible in the Cairns townsite, developing from tomorrow night, where the storm will likely be making landfall around 5 to 8 a.m. local time on Wednesday. That's kind of the predicted local landfall time at this time. So let's take a look at the icon model right now. You can see the cyclone expected to move into the Queensland coastline, like I said, Wednesday early morning, south of Hopevale and Cooktown, just north of Port Douglas on this run, so this is a little bit further north. Again, I don't think this is 100% accurate from the icon model. I believe that the just north of Cairns landfall scenario is the most likely right now, which will put the eye of the storm over Cairns for at least a brief period of time, which means if you do suddenly feel calm conditions in Cairns, do not go outside until the official all clear has been handed down. Anyways, that's the latest on this part of the video. We're going to jump over to windy.com and take a look at the forecast models, especially the rainfall right now, so stay tuned. So we're starting things off here with a look at the radar imagery. Here's the tropical cyclone right now. It's just towards the northeast of Flinders Reef at this time. You can see winds there, 40 knots sustained. That's about 75 kilometres an hour. And the same on Holmes Reef, and looks like Willis Island just starting to calm down a little bit as this cyclone makes passage, and it will be moving through, probably just through here and then up towards Holmes Reef, where it will likely pass over late into tonight, early into tomorrow. Then it will turn due west and head towards its landfall site townsite around Port Douglas, which is just through here, and you can see the outer bands of the cyclone already starting to come ashore at this time. So based off the radar imagery, I estimate the center of the storm to be right about here, and if we flick over to the satellite imagery, you can see once again the center of the circulation, just about there. In fact, I nailed that, but you can see on the infrared satellite imagery some pretty good convection firing up towards the northern side of the system right now. That means these thunderstorms firing up means that conditions are becoming much more favorable for development. Like I said earlier, wind shear is dropping very fast at this time. Sea surface temperatures can definitely support a rapidly intensifying tropical cyclone. So we're likely going to be seeing this cyclone put on quite a few knots, probably around 20 to 25 knots of intensity as it lines up for landfall on Port Douglas, which means we're going to see this cyclone approach a peak intensity or second peak intensity of around 60 knots sustained winds. That's up to around 115 kilometers an hour sustained winds 10-minute, which would definitely put it as a Category 2 strength storm approaching Category 3 status. But keep in mind, peak wind gusts will be far stronger than that, probably be approaching 160 kilometers an hour throughout Port Douglas and right down towards Cairns. So that's kind of the heavy impact zone at this time. Between Port Douglas and Cairns, we're going to be expecting the worst conditions as this cyclone moves through. But anywhere between Cooktown right down to Innisfail can expect cyclone conditions, and inland, including Ravenshoe, Atherton, and even up towards Laura, could probably see a brief period of tropical cyclone conditions, and inland towards Palmerville as well. So again, let's take a look at the forecast of this cyclone. We've had a look at the winds plenty, so we're going to take a look at the rainfall forecast from this cyclone on the Bureau of Meteorology's own forecast model. You can see as we start playing this run through here, the cyclone picks up more and more moisture, more and more rainfall starts falling around the center of the system, and it looks like it gets more and more organized on the model run. This is just surefire signs of intensification as this cyclone moves closer to shore, making landfall on what looks like Wudgel here. You can see the eye of the system clearly defined on this forecast run, and you can see basically from what looks to be Tuesday evening, this intense rainfall, this intense onshore flow, bringing ashore heavy showers and rainfall north of Ingham down to up towards Cairns. So Tully, Innisfail, Ravenshoe, they can be expecting torrential rainfall to materialize around Tuesday evening, and that will persist right through Wednesday as the cyclone makes passage, and even into Thursday as well. We'll only start to ease about Thursday evening, where 6-hour totals could approach 100 millimeters and 24-hour totals could be approaching the 400 millimeter mark. And if we take a look at rainfall accumulation on the Access model, you can see over the next 5 days, tremendous amounts of rainfall expected, up to 1,200 millimeters just outside of Cooktown. Again, I would take this with a heavy grain of salt. The Access model is notorious for overestimating on rainfall. It can be a wildly inaccurate model on that front, but it just gives you a sense of scale on how much rainfall we are expecting. So once again, a very significant cyclone moving ashore north of Cairns, probably between Port Douglas and Cape Tribulation Wednesday morning. And the worst conditions will materialize probably about Tuesday evening. So make sure you're rushing your preparations to completion throughout the rest of tonight and into tomorrow morning, because you're going to need to start bunkering down if you live between Cooktown and down towards Innisfail or Tully by about midday tomorrow. That's when conditions are really going to start deteriorating, and you'll see full-blown cyclone conditions Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, where landfall is then expected around 8 a.m. Wednesday morning, and then conditions will hopefully start to ease by about Wednesday evening as this cyclone moves through, and we'll get a full sense of scale of the potential destruction from this system around Thursday morning as news starts to break from the area. And to finish it off, we'll just take a brief look at the long-range forecast for Tropical Cyclone Jasper. We're here on Friday right now, Friday morning. We're going to see the cyclone emerge over the Cape York Peninsula as a tropical low just north of some of the Aboriginal communities down towards the south. We'll see the cyclone emerge just north of these indigenous communities in the central Cape York Peninsula, and then move into the Gulf of Carpentaria north of Mornington Island, where we'll likely be seeing some re-strengthening, regaining cyclone status early Saturday. Maybe it'll get close to that at least, with those gale force conditions highlighted by red just down here, and then it'll move over towards Groot Island, making a landfall on the Northern Territory as a tropical low-strength system just south of Gathalala, and then it'll move over sort of the Kakadu region and then probably towards Cape Melville. And then in the long range, with some models daring to suggest that we'll be seeing a landfall over around Derby, Broome in Western Australia, or even over Darwin sort of around Christmas time. So a very worrying picture there, but this is really long range, so you can leave your questions down in the comment section down below, but we're not 100% certain. We're not even 50% certain with what's going to happen long range for this system. And again, I think other models as well calling for it to move into the Gulf of Carpentaria again as a tropical low, maybe a brief cyclone as it re-emerges. Conditions are actually pretty good in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Wind shears reasonably low for this cyclone. I believe it's around sort of 15 knots in the Gulf of Carpentaria, 10 to 15 knots, and sea surface temperatures are approaching, I think, 31 degrees Celsius in places, so conditions are really, really good for the cyclone here. So rapid intensification possible, and some models are calling for rapid intensification in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and the sea surface temperatures are also a reason why we're going to be seeing rapid intensification possible up towards landfall. 28, 29 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures as the storm approaches Cairns. So again, we could be seeing these brief periods of rapid intensification ensue sort of around Tuesday, around midday, and then into Wednesday morning, just before this cyclone makes landfall on Queensland, south of Port Douglas, around the Cape Tribulation area. And yeah, I think we're going to call sort of Cape Tribulation, not Cape Tribulation, Port Douglas, as the landfall site for this cyclone, which would put Cairns in the destructive core of this system. So that's what we're watching out for very closely indeed. And I believe if we were to take a look at the long-range forecast as well, this is ECMWF, but you can still see intense thunderstorms and enhanced monsoon over the Northern Territory, so heavy rainfall possible over the next 5 days as a result of this cyclone making its passage through the Cape York Peninsula and over towards the Northern Territory in the Gulf of Carpentaria. So yeah, that's basically the latest that we have on Tropical Cyclone Jasper at this time. Be sure to stay tuned for more information on the channel, subscribe and leave a like on the video, and leave a comment down below telling us how we can improve or just giving us some general feedback. But that's the latest from us, and I'll catch you on the next storm. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching our content this update. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to get more updates covering all things weather and geophysics impacting Australia and the Oceania region. Subscribe to our other channels for more content from across the network, and be sure to check out our website where you can find free access to floater and radar imagery and articles on everything weather and much more. If you wish to support us directly, you can purchase some of our merchandise. We have a wide variety of clothing and homeware, or you could become an ultimate fan, which is the best way to directly support us, granting you some sweet perks and offers, including features in our custom storm animations, live streams, and much more.